Well, good morning and welcome back to Hiring for Good. As usual, I am Tanis Morris, and with me is my lovely co-host, Suzanne Hannafin.
Good morning, Tanis.
Hi, Suzanne. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Chris Pippin. Chris leads with both heart and precision, guiding teams that not only hit their goals, but elevate the entire organization in the process. Over his 15 years at Cambia, Chris has built a reputation for delivering results, cultivating talent, and creating systems that truly work, while keeping a strong focus on values and long-term impact. From managing multifunctional teams to contributing on national platforms like the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, Chris brings deep insight into what it takes to lead with purpose in a complex, fast-paced industry. And I might add, constantly changing industry.
It's true.
Yes. We're talking today about what great team culture actually looks like, how to create space for growth and innovation, and how hiring with intention can drive real transformation. Plus, we'll get a glimpse into the human side of leadership, from Stanford roots to raising a family of five. Actually, to leading a family of five, I would say.
Perfect. Yeah. Yep.
And sneaking in around a golf when he can. Let's dive in. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Tanis. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you here. So usually we ask our guests to kind of begin by just telling us a little bit about kind of your journey to your current seat at Cambia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, happy to. And careers are funny things. I mean, it's not something when you're in school, you sit down and say, I want to work for a health insurance company and be in marketing operations. Like, I didn't think I knew what marketing operations was, and I barely knew what health insurance was. So, I started my career down in the Bay Area, and I was right on the just at the back end of the tech bubble, which was kind of unfortunate timing, but bounced around there for a while and had an opportunity in real estate. And I spent about a decade doing real estate. And that was really fun for a while. And then it got really not fun around 2008 or so. So I went looking for a new career and a career reset, and landed at Cambia. And I've been there ever since.
Okay. And so when you came in at Cambia, I'm assuming, did you just come in marketing, how did you kind of journey to?
Yeah, I mean, again, careers are funny things, and a lot of it is happenstance how these things go. But I'd been there, I think, a month, and we had a reorganization, and about 6 months later, we had a new leader that came in after that, and I think I had 3 different jobs in my first year.
Wow.
Was able to work with the new leader, and she put me in a position where I was able to succeed, which was great, and have been, kind of progressing from there.
And did you start out managing people? I know you manage a pretty significant size team now.
Not when I came in the door. I've been managing for a long time, but when I started at Cambia, I was an individual contributor role. But pretty quickly, I developed a team, and been growing the team and evolving, for the last probably 12 or 13 of those 15 years.
Yeah, and you talk about during 2008, which was, a very difficult time. But as you move through your career, there are formative events that happen that really shape who you are as a leader. And whether it's a mentor or rising above challenging situations, what have been some of those real formative experiences, and really what were the learnings?
It's interesting, just again, how much of this is unplanned. But when I was down in the Bay Area, I was working for a startup for a period of time. I had an employee number in the low double digits, let's say, and there was no training. There was very little guidance. It was like, here, figure it out. And I think at that point, I was 24, and at one point, somebody said, "Hey, we need somebody to manage these 3 new hires. You're now a manager." It's like, okay, I guess I'll figure that out. And again, no training or anything else. That's always stuck with me because I really like the figure it out thing. And most of the people that I've seen be real successful are those kind of people too. And usually when you give people room to figure it out, they'll, if they're the right kind of people, they'll be successful, they'll thrive, and they'll usually do something that surprises you too. So that's always stuck with me. And that works way better than, I've had managers where they are very directive and, very much want you to do things a certain way. I've always chafed at that a little bit. And I found that, when I have a teams kind of chafe at that too. So I like to give people as much room as I can to figure things out on their own.
I find that really interesting because that's a very young age to go into a management
Oh yeah, I had
role.
no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, do you think that going through your own experiences of figuring it out made you better positioned to just let your teams do it, or do you innately lead in
Absolutely.
that way, or do you kind of try to be directive and then fail?
No, I absolutely. It's informed kind of the way I've hired and managed my team, and I think you have to be comfortable figuring out like what's the worst thing that can happen here, and are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And if you're okay with it, then let people figure it out and let them have a little bit of failing. Sometimes, that can be frustrating, but it's going to be way better in the long term, especially for the employee and their growth and their satisfaction as well.
Yeah, and you talk about like this figuring out, which I would probably classify as curiosity of really kind of, again, figuring things out. And obviously it's a core value of yours. And what other core values, when you look at leadership and management, do you draw upon, and how do you implement that in the hiring process?
Yeah, the other, so this kind of goes along with this, almost the flip side of figuring it out is getting things done. I'm very much a get things done sort of person, and I look for that in people that I hire. I don't care as much about the how. That's the figure it out part, but we got to get the thing done. So the what and the when are important, but the how less so. So I try to drive that in my teams too. I mean, let's stop talking, let's start doing. You can tend to get bogged down often, especially at a large company, a lot of stakeholders involved.
Yeah, and Cambia is not as small.
It's not small, and it's very complex and highly matrixed. And a lot of what you have to do as a manager is making sure the right people know about the right work streams, and just keeping people updated. But that can get a little bit excessive sometimes, and sometimes you just have to, okay, let's stop talking about it and let's start working, and we'll get there. So that's one thing I definitely, it's hard to call that a value, but I view it as a value, like, a value of accomplishment, completion, achievement, those sorts of things.
And so when you look at that and you talk about when and where or timing versus how, is that, do you bring in a lot of data and matrix and tracking, or do you really say by June 1st, we're going to get this accomplished? See a team.
Yeah, sometimes when we can. Like to be everybody likes to be data driven. I'm very much that way, but it's hard. Sometimes the data doesn't exist. Sometimes intuition is better than data. So it really depends on the project, but usually it is more that second thing you're talking about, like, hey, we've got to get this project done. The due date is June 15th. Let's go. And that's not to say I'm completely hands off, or I just like say, okay, wipe my hands and we'll see you on June 15th. But you have to be comfortable with letting your team figure out how to get from today to June 15th and what the path is, because usually they know better than you do.
Well, and I'm going to ask one more question. I'm so sorry, Tanis, for jumping in here so much. But I think it goes back to who you hire. You can't necessarily do that for everyone.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you look at the hiring, are there key things that you look at and go, oh, this person is going to fit not just my management style, but also within the team? How do you gauge that?
Yeah, I actually love doing job interviews because it's really fun to meet people and chat about these things with them. And I like to ask people about situational questions. So one question I often ask, and maybe I'm giving things away because I'm sure some future recruit's going to find this and listen back, and now they'll be super prepared, I guess. But I like to ask people, okay, talk to me about a project that went off the rails. What did you do? How did you solve for that? What was the problem? And how how'd that make you feel? Did you panic? Maybe that's okay to panic, but then how'd you work through it? So talking about those kind of situations with people, it gives you a pretty good idea as to, are they going to be able to figure it out or not? It's not easy to gauge. And a lot of it is you kind of use your gut a little bit on those things, but you got to kind of put people in the situation and ask them, how they navigated that situation.
So now I feel compelled to ask you, when have you failed and how did you manage through
Oh, well,
it?
I mean, I just told you I had a complete career reset in about 2008 or 2009. And, try to limit those things as much as you can, especially in the role I'm in now. I'm not going to say it never happens, but I don't know. I think I'm going to punt on that one, Suzanne, from giving any other examples. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that has kind of come about through the process of doing this podcast is when we ask people to talk about formative experiences, it's almost always when things didn't go as they planned, or
Right.
when they had to, restructure their lives or their career or their team or their company, whatever it was. And I've found that one of the most kind of compelling takeaways from just doing the podcast. It's like, nobody's really going back to like, when I had this massive success, I learned
Right.
the most. It's
That's
pretty
exactly
interesting.
right. Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
kind of, I think for me personally, it's made me feel a lot more like, all right, if you're failing, you're learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
or
Yes.
things aren't going
Yeah.
as you want.
Yeah.
Lean in, because that's when things get interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when you're going to grow.
Agree.
So, punt away, but but no, it's good stuff. The other interesting question that I think has been the most compelling for Suzanne and I to ask our guests is, when you look back over your career in life, what advice would you give to, 20-year-old Chris?
I think the thing that I struggled with very early and still does not come naturally is self-promotion. That is something that I've learned is really important in the corporate world, especially. Like if you've got your own company, that's kind of a different story. But when you're in a large organization, it's really easy to get lost. And it took me a long, long time to learn that. And it sounds very self-serving, but it's more about the work. It's about showing your value to the company, those kinds of things. The more of that you do and the more comfortable you get with it, you're going to be better served in the long run. And that goes for individuals as well as their teams too. So if you manage people, you have to be vocal about your team, their work, and the value it's bringing to the company. Because if you're not, again, it's way, way too easy to get lost in a big company if you don't.
I'm going to lean in on this because I think we haven't heard this particular piece of advice before. And I think it's maybe one of the best pieces of advice for a
Flattering
leader.
me, but
No, I'm not joking. I think
Yeah.
it's so common to get lost or to not recognize how important that is. Can you give some examples of positive ways to advocate for yourself or your team within a large organization?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to my team about this too, especially the ones, team members come to you all the time and say, hey, I want a promotion. What should I do? The only way to be, well, not the only, the best way to be successful in a large organization is you have to do the job that you want rather than the job you have. And then you've got to show people. The best way to get promoted is to say, is to have a leader say, I can't believe you're only a fill in the blank. And then, people are going to look at you as that higher role, not the role you're in now. So anyway, you have to be willing to take on additional work, stretch projects, and make sure that the right people know that you're doing it. So I think that's probably the best advice I've got on that.
Yeah. And so when you're looking back 15 years, again, large organization, what are you most proud of? And especially, and wrap it around teams and your management and leadership.
A little bit cliched, I guess, but I'm most proud of the people I've worked with, the relationships I've built, some of the leaders that I've helped develop, some of the individual contributors I've helped develop. I mean, we talk about it all the time at the company. And again, it's a common question. So in an interview, it's a common question I get back, which is, what do you like most about working at blank?
Yeah.
You hear that all the time, right? And my answer is always the people. So it's really what makes coming to work enjoyable a lot of the days. I really enjoy my manager. I enjoy my team. Enjoy my peers, and think your question was about what I'm most proud of, and so this is a little bit of an indirect answer, but I think it's those relationships and just the atmosphere and culture that we've. Well, I can't take credit for building it, but that we've enjoyed, contributed to maybe.
And you've alluded to this culture, and culture is bottom up. Mm-hmm. Behaviors tend to be top down.
Yeah.
So, talk about how you've influenced, or have you influenced that culture, and what has kept you there for so long?
Yeah, you have to. At a large company, highly matrixed, very complex and all that, you have to be communicative. You have to be willing to share work. There are so many gray areas, so much ambiguity. So I'm a big believer in role clarity. That's something else I work on a lot with my teams, is making sure people know what their job is. But that's got to come with a little bit of flexibility too. And you've got to be able to say, hey, this new project, I'm not sure if it should be yours or that person's or this third person's. We're gonna give it to this other person over here, and you've got to be okay with that. And being able to communicate around that, make sure people know their roles and they're comfortable with those kinds of things. I think that's probably one of the bigger things I can do to contribute to that culture. But it's tough. I mean, it's navigating the organization and the industry, really challenging.
Yes, and there's a lot of changes in the industry right now.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you had a crystal ball, what do you think the next year looks like? Maybe 5 years looks like?
Oh, man.
You notice I didn't say 10 or 20.
Well, yeah. I mean, even projecting, out a quarter or so is really hard. I mean, we're, in the healthcare and health insurance industry, costs continue to be the number one challenge for both consumers or members or patients, whatever you want to call them, as well as employers, who are usually the ones sponsoring health insurance plans, and that's going to continue. I don't see that pressure changing. So, there's a lot of innovation in the space. There are a lot of companies trying to disrupt things. There's a lot of new ideas being floated. I think they're all kind of in that cost, along that cost vector. So I think, answering your question a little bit more directly, I think the next 5 years are going to continue to see that trend, and continue to see companies and individuals look for ways that we can break through that. The ever increasing healthcare costs. I don't know what that's going to be. Right. I think that's almost impossible to predict. But that's the thing that kind of hangs over every conversation.
I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one more question, kind of more broadly, but you talk about innovation, and I know for a long time Cambia was doing their incubators.
Yep.
Is Cambia still involved, and are you involved in the incubation of companies?
Yeah, I'm maybe not the best person to talk about this, but yes, Cambia is a partner in something called Echo Health Ventures. See, this is why I'm not the best person probably to talk about. I don't know the exact name, but we are partnered with some other blue plans in that. And yeah, they're an incubator, using your word there, on for a variety of startups and small companies that are looking to innovate in the healthcare and health insurance space. So, our team gets a little bit involved on the marketing side in terms of helping to position those solutions for employers, and sometimes communicate to members as well.
Yeah. I always think that would be fun, because, again, you get to see creative ideas and hopefully new ways of doing. I mean, insurance is not a new industry.
Right.
You said you like to solve problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of cool that you're, ended up at a company that is actively, working towards, or, taking outside of the box approaches to solving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really,
and that's I mean, it's corporate mission. We call it the cause, but that is, that's what the company exists to do, is to transform healthcare. So, yeah.
Wow, how wonderful. It sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
The last question that we always ask our guests, Chris, is, what does hiring for good mean to you? So it's iterative.
You're
looking for a plug, right? That's
no,
what this
actually,
is.
No. And we've heard so many different answers to it. It's almost like the advice,
right?
That it's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
What does hiring for good?
Well,
It can mean a lot of different things, actually.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
like that it's a little bit.
I mean, I'll tie it right to the last bit of our conversation, which is I think you have to keep the mission in mind when you're hiring people. So, you want to look for talent and look for skills and leadership and all those things. But you also have to keep the mission in mind. And I'm fortunate because almost everybody that we interview, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but a lot of people we interview say, I want to work for you because of your mission, which is pretty cool. So, I think that's my best guess. Has anybody said that one before? Probably.
Serving the mission? Probably. I mean,
Probably.
it's kind of, for good can mean for permanence. We've had some people say for good means like hiring for the betterment of the people that they're actually hiring.
Oh, interesting.
It's really
I hadn't
kinda,
considered that definition.
That one was interesting
Cool.
for us too. We hadn't thought of it in that way. I mean, it's actually kind of fun to hear what people have to say. But it's been really fun to hear what you've had to say.
Good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And again, it's always fascinating on talking with people from, your learnings, your experience, because that's who you are. And I am going to ask one more question, just on again, your career plan.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, in the next some years, are you going to be the next CEO of Cambia? Is that what you're aspiring to be?
What kind of a question is that? I learned again back like in 2008 that probably shouldn't make plans exactly like that. I had a lot of ideas in 2005 when the market was ripping about what I thought my career and my life were going to look like. Absolutely zero of those things came to pass. So, take it, a little bit at a time and we'll see where things go. How about that?
And I have my money that in 10 to 15 years, Chris will be the CEO of Cambia.
Oh, wow. Come on. Stop.
All right.
Zero ambition for that
just
right now.
teasing.
Come on.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
so much for your time.
Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us today at Hiring for Good. If you were inspired by our conversation, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you want to learn more about our executive search services, check us out at www.hiringforgood.net or our company website, Acumen Executive Search.
Thanks so much, and don't forget to join us next time for another in-depth conversation about transformational leadership. Until then, have fun.